Back again, beautiful people. Back again, back again, back again. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful evening here from the United Kingdom. Today's topic is an interesting one. I've got interesting friends that will be joining on board. Yeah, Kenneth. If you can do me a favor, uh, kindly send me. Oh, okay, that's grand. That's grand. I can see already. That's grand. Hello, my brother from Uganda. Why does Uganda sound like Wakanda?
Yeah, no, we are the real Wakanda boys and girls.
Yeah, good evening, bro.
Yes, good evening, my brother from Nigeria, from my other
Yeah,
mother.
yeah. I'm gonna do a brief introduction, so we just delve into the topic. But before the introduction, let me just try to explain that my other guest, who is Salma, for understandable reasons, she will not be joining on board. Trust me, she tried her best. She's a very, very intelligent and respected friend I have, and she's on
Okay.
transit. She's on transit, and she's been trying as much as possible, but she's traveling from one city to another city. She's been busy doing a wonderful work, which I understand. So she made me know that she'll not be joining this live program. So,
No, yeah,
so
it's well with a safe journey. Of course, I know we all get caught up here and there. Sometimes, even if you plan something, you can get caught up along the way.
yeah,
We just wish I had a safe journey.
yeah. Which I'm not scared because I know Kenneth, yeah, we're gonna do justice to the topic. Let me do a brief introduction for people that are joining. Kenneth Ngise, is that the right pronunciation?
Yes,
See, I'm already Ugandan already. You should give me my passport already.
true, bro.
Kenneth and I share intellectual kind of relationship for for a time for a while now. We've been sharing our works. I featured in one of your books, if I remember, where I forward one of them. I wrote my commentary in one of your books, and Kenneth also featured in my the Big Black Theory anthology, which actually got recognized by the UNESCO. And personally, Kenneth and I also we so much respect a Capone together, which is Professor Wale Soyinka, and we are using this time to say happy birthday to the icon, to our own William Shakespeare in Africa, whose birthday was yesterday, 90th birthday. Although personally, my wishes to him and my contribution to something that is going to be soon announced will be made official, which I don't want to go, ahead of the the institutions that are in charge of it. But right now, Kenneth and I, we are saying a big shout out to Capone. Happy birthday to Professor Wale Soyinka, and thanks for all the sacrifices of the work and your revolutionary act, your activism that you've put in. You have paved way for people like us to say, yeah, we have people ahead that we look at and we say, yeah, we can also walk on this path. You're welcome on board, brother. How's
Thanks,
Uganda?
my, thanks, my brother. I'm just happy about the introduction, everything you've said about me. Man, you keep record. That's the best thing of you. And so maybe for our viewers, I can go ahead, to add something to what you have said. Uh, I heard you're struggling with my name, Ngise, but you pronounced it very well. That is now Africanism. I'm Gwambale Kennedy Ngise the third from Uganda, and particularly I come from the western part of Uganda. I'm a child of Mount Rwenzori, the only, no, not the only one in East Africa, the only, or one of the few snow-capped mountains around. I love reading, writing, and acting on stage. And of course, just as my brother Sodek has said it, or just as you have said it, my brother, we all have one mission, and that is, of course, making Africa better and making Africa better, of course, through literature. We are writers, we are readers, we are people of the book. As others fight with with a trigger. For us, we fight with the bar of a pen to write here and there. And so, my brother, I'm happy to be here and to be conversing with our great viewers on the topic you have already introduced.
Okay.
Because, of course, this is a contagious topic, bro. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Now, let me, before I introduce the topic, let me introduce you to this space. Let me welcome you to this space. I call this space Street and Cathedral. And a brief introduction. Street and Cathedral is an idea that was given to me by God. And I've been making use of the social media in order to foster intellectualism in all respect. So the street there in core essence represents the voice of the common people. Now, upon my meditation, I stumbled upon the thought that I've seen that most people that have given the spotlight, the camera shining upon them or focusing on them, has been people that attacked celebrities. So I asked myself the question: are we supposed to wait till the society tag us, the called celebrity, before we can hear our opinion about what affects a common person? So that is what the street stands for. And personally, I've been a dissenter. A dissenter, I've been a non-conformist. I don't think I've been starstruck. I've been at the corridors of power, worked with some big icons that I've never even seen them as the celebrities to say. So my journey so far in life, have been treating everybody, equally, normally. So I felt like, yeah, this is the right, the path I could go upon, and this is kind of, thing I could actually um, push an agenda I can actually push where people can actually come and hear their opinion. And come to think of it, amidst we people, which they call the masses, tagged, we have intelligent people and we are the most affected people by the system. So what does cathedral stands for? Cathedral is the spiritual essence of humans in general. I believe that the spirituality of every human is something we should respect and hold with high esteem. Cathedral there does not really represent Christianity. It is just my own sincerity that I come from a Christian background that had to write the cathedral. If I had been a traditional worshiper, it would have been street and shrine. If I have been a Muslim, it would have been street and mosque, or maybe street and whatever I would target that will actually um, that will actually reveal the truth of where I stand. I pitch my tent with spirituality. But one of the many examples where I will tell you that those things doesn't bother me is because Salma that is supposed to join us on board, she's a Muslim, and when I mean Muslim, she's a Muslim to the core. And she's someone I respect. Her works are all over Africa. She has pushed work in African Union. She has pushed, like, she's a big fish when it comes to writing and storytelling. And it's just quite unfortunate that she wouldn't be joining us here, right? But I'm very sure she's part of this program in spirit. She has been my friend way back, and we share lots of respect together. So, the topic at hand is reading culture, a need for the Africans, for the African child's development. Now, I'll give you the background of what led to this topic. I I realized that when I was growing up, I developed this kind of interest to reading. Sometimes I missed my peers. They tend to find it unnecessarily stressful for me. Like, why are you always reading and all? But I did everything that a boy could do. I was mischievous my own way. I was playful. I did the playing football. I grew up as a normal child. But there's one thing that seems alien to the people that I was consistent with, and that was I was the bookworm type. I love reading, and it has been part of me while growing up. But I realized that this thing my people find strange. When I came to this part of this world, it was part of their culture. It was a normal thing for an European to go to bookstore to buy book. As a matter of fact, they make fortune selling all their old books they don't want anymore, to go to the bookstore to sell it off and all. So I asked myself, you will see these guys come to you, these aspire to perspire people come to you and tell you that, oh, readers and leaders, they aspire to perspire to people, that they will tell you can do anything that your mind set on. You can divide the river and all, but they'll tell you that readers are leaders. So let us just
Now,
first talk.
my brother,
Yeah.
I will first go where you started from. You talked about cathedral and the street.
Street and
As you see me here, I know, I think you're a Muslim, right?
No, I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian.
Okay. It doesn't matter much. Like, as you see me here, I'm a former seminarian. I went to a seminary, I was in a mission school from, I mean, like for 6 years. I took in the dogma and everything that that is associated with fanaticism and everything. But of course, sometimes when you get back home, you ask yourself several questions. It's only very unrealistic people that don't ask themselves questions. When you get back home and ask yourself questions, you learn more because the best interview of our lives are ourselves. And there are so many questions I ask myself. I'll not dive into that for now. And talking about reading, the reading culture, I'm happy you're a great reader. I know you have always been one because no one writes without
Of course,
reading.
of course.
Um, yeah, no one writes without
So
reading.
my
People who
question
write,
is, Kenneth, let me throw this question open to you. What are the
yeah.
benefits for what are the benefits of reading for child's development?
Well, when it comes to reading to children, it sharpens their thinking capacity, and they get to interpret things differently compared to those who do not read.
Mm.
That,
Okay,
that,
so when we talk about the state of reading culture currently in Africa, what should we talk about? What is the state of reading culture in Africa as it stands now?
now, let me talk about it in line with Uganda. And I see Diver Docas is watching, and she's Ugandan. She's a Ugandan. Let me talk about it in line with Uganda. Here in Uganda, most of the youth think that the people who should read are those doing literature in school, especially secondary level, and the rest think they should only concentrate on what is set in exams. Most of the people here look at the end of course exams, and so the reading culture, when it comes to the youth, is something that is so much lacking because our children are reading for exams since their success out there or their employment is determined by the grades they score in these other end of course exams. And so they will ask a child, I have met all the people. I've met all the people who are doctors, medical doctors, and engineers, and they will quote all Sayinga, they will quote Chinua Achebe, they will quote Timothy Wangusa, and you ask yourself, wow, you mean these guys are also reading these books as they were doing engineering? But apparently, with our generation, particularly, when you ask a child if she has read, let's say, Things Fall Apart, I think every child should read Things Fall Apart. Every child should read Animal Farm and so many others. But the child will tell you, I do not do literature and I don't like literature. So reading has been associated to literature. And when it comes to other disciplines, it is associated to exams. So that's
Mm.
how it is
Mm.
apparently.
I wrote something down here. Would we say that the linguistic diversity is actually responsible for this? Africa is littered with lots of languages. So would you also say that this is responsible for the poor reading culture we have? Or should we agree? Should we agree right now that we have a poor reading culture across the continent at first? Is that
Mm,
an opinion?
yeah, true. Now look at it this way. In language, we basically have four major skills. We have reading and listening. We have writing and
Speaking,
we have reading, listening,
writing and
writing, and
speaking.
very good. And so now what happened that in Africa or in our culture, it was basically speaking, that speaking and listening. The elders spoke and the young listened. And of course, that has died. Apparently, you do not find an elderly man conversing with a circle of young men and women, telling them stories of the past. What is apparently at hand is supposed to be reading. And of course, reading and trying to make sense of what is read. But what happens apparently is that there are so many distractions that make it hard for our children to read. Even when you get like I teach literature, I teach these other books here. When you introduce a book to students, a literature book to students, they will ask you, do you have a movie adaptation of this book?
Mm.
Because we would really love to first watch the movie. So you can see that from speaking and listening now to reading and writing. Some I think the transition has not been well handled. I don't know. Our culture has not adopted that. Perhaps the first people who organized our curriculum did not think about that. The youth easily got interested in listening stories from from their elders, but apparently they easily get bored with reading. They just don't like reading.
Mm. Okay, so now let's talk about the cross cultural and exposure. No, cross cultural understanding. We have a cross cultural understanding that we could achieve in reading, and there's also this exposure this reading gives to a child. Most especially, also it gives discipline and emotional intelligence. So why has this not been channeled as one of the strategies, adopted of nurturing reading culture in our culture? Why? Because reading is actually, it is still discipline, it is still cross-cultural understanding. Where I read about Uganda, I've never been to Uganda, but I think I've read a couple of authors from Uganda. I've read a couple of authors before I even stepped into Ghana. I've read about Kobe Seki, the Blinkers. I've read about Aiko Hama, the Beautiful and Nurtured Ones. You've read about Things Fall Apart. You've not been to Nigeria, but you've read about Things Fall Apart. So you could actually make up the cross-cultural understanding about, what is similitude to the Ugandan experience, colonial experience. You could make actually a similarity towards that. So why has this not been an adaptation at the face of this, this reading? Why? What has actually stifled this reading culture at the early
Mm.
phase? What we experience now.
Now, when you talk about cross culture, of course, here in Uganda, I'm happy you've been honest about Uganda. You've never been here, but I remember the other year you almost came, and I know one time you were
Yeah,
coming here.
yeah.
We won't do much, you know. Now, let's get to the point straight. Um, at least we know about our neighbors, we know about ourselves, but there's nothing much actually we know about how they live their lives. And you know what causes this? It is because we do not want to read. But first of all, people have always wanted to blame our failure to read on our former colonialists, which I really refute. It is us who just don't want to read. When you get to Uganda here, at least there's one predominant tribe, Uganda or Baganda. Everyone I think in this country knows them, knows much about them, and simply because we read about them in school, we study about them. They're in the notes of history. You'll find them in CRE, and even in primary school, you'll at least hear something about them. So at least that one now you can tell that we know these ones because we have read about them. So what affects us mostly is that the scholars of several tribes and societies have not documented their history, they have not documented their culture, because this reading culture is supposed to start from home. Like personally, I'm a Mkonjo, but I can tell you that the Lukonjo dictionary or dictionary came when I was very old. I think I was already at university when someone told me, you know what, there's a Lukonjo dictionary. I can hardly read some of the words there. I can hardly pronounce some of the words there. Why? Because it has not been part of my
Do you
culture.
think?
So the point here is that our
Do you also think? I'm sorry to interject. Do you also think the government didn't make it a priority to actually also invest in the research and the collation of all these materials, all these materials towards the reading to in order to foster the reading culture? What I mean by that is in two phases. I don't know about Uganda, but I could
okay.
compare Nigeria. I could compare Nigeria to this society in every community there is a community library. But rather than library in Nigeria, in every community there's an hotel, a motel, or a brothel. So I do not see where the government is not, conscious of that, and how a government that's not conscious of ensuring that each community has a community library in order to actually foster the reading culture of a community, compared to every community that has a motel. There's going to be two different kind of, community that we are going to have vis-a-vis placing them aside. So what do you think about the government coming in place that I know you've said about the people? Let's take it up to the government as well. What is the role the government can also play, and what role have they played?
Now, my brother Sodeke, one of the Uganda's authors, that is Kalumgogo Godfrey, in his novel, A Mercury Road, that the government has three roles to play. One is to protect itself, two is to protect itself, three is to protect itself. Now, let's look at it this way. When we were growing up, I think in the government of Milton Obote, Dr. Milton Obote, one of the leaders that took over power in this country shortly after independence, we heard of public libraries. We heard of projects based on culture. People did research on their culture. They invited professors from Makerere University, from Chambogo University, and did research on culture. And they came up with their findings and sat down with the elders of different communities to come up with a compilation of the literature of a given culture. But look here, apparently all people will want to associate with the culture of the people in power. I think for you in Nigeria, you talk about South and the North, I think. I follow Nigeria a lot. Now,
Yeah.
for us here, they are tribe. Someone will want to associate with the tribe of the president, meaning that their culture remains the other side. And on the other hand, the president himself will want to pretend as if he's not pushing his tribe and the culture and everything. So in that confusion, you find that the government is not going to be in a position to fund, for example, a minority group to come up with a research about themselves and compile something that society can read. So they are still, as we are talking about Uganda, now let me talk about Uganda. We are still tied up in the colonial system.
But
Of course, I
but
put it in
now
brackets.
now but now the issue about this colonial system as an excuse, that even the colonial countries that we're talking about, that's what I'm saying. Juxtaposing what is happening in Africa right now to these colonial countries that we tag as they have community libraries in every community, but in our own community, it is brothels and motels that we have instead of community libraries. So how can you blame the colonial masters when you are not even copying them well?
Okay, now this is it. You know, our curriculum, first of all, is not funded by our governments. Our leaders are so wicked that they do not care about tomorrow. They don't care about the next generation. As you see me here, I have never entered any community library in Uganda. I saw one in a district called Tororo, that is eastern Uganda. And when I entered it, they did not have most of the books I'd gone to read.
Good,
I
good,
have only entered university libraries, school libraries, but in the community, people think reading is for those who are in school and are preparing for exams.
good.
I do not utterly blame the colonial system because this guy is read. I think they are the very people who brought the idea of community libraries. And so the same idea has been killed by our very own leaders.
Good. Now, I like the way we are talking about this. So because we are going to delve into policy implementation and educational reforms, you would agree with me that we need educational reforms in Africa. So how can we now? Let us imagine right now that we are not trying to blame. We are trying to provide solution, because whether we like it or not, Africa is produce. No, let's compare African Asians now. Africans, Asians, and let's say the Europeans in this contemporary world. Now,
Mm.
you put your contemporaries side by side. Maybe someone who came from China, another came from Uganda, another came from um, let's say the UK. You would notice that even if the African chap is a bright fellow, the enabling environment, these two guys, the one from China and the one from UK, the enabling environment they had, access they had, in order to be what they have, in order to be what they are right now, is different from the African child. The African child is almost seen as as the odd one, as one out of million, as one out of 100. For you to fall in love with reading book or have access to some certain information in order to speak some kind of intellectual conversation, and in order for you to be able to relate to the world the way these other two guys could, they see you as miracle coming from Africa because it is an unusual thing. But these two guys,
Okay.
they have an enabling environment. So let us now talk about this policy implementation because it is stupid. That means Africans are producing more idiots to the community and expecting change. That is just the. I'm just being blunt because a saying said, it's only a fool or a madman that does the same thing over and over and expect the different result. How do you place hotel as a secondary school student? After I left school, in my area on Saturday or Sunday, I cannot access a community library to just go and read on my own. But look at this story, Ben Carson. Ben Carson wrote and studied more in the community library. You remember the story?
Mm.
It was when he was even walking to the community library, he saw a stone and he went to the community library, took a book, read about the stone, and answered a right question in line with that stone in the class. So you can say that community library had the enabling environment had a positive effect on chaps like Ben Carson, and let us multiply Ben Carson by 1 million. And let's multiply an African child whose ambition is to see people smoking, drinking, motels, brotels, seeing people dressing in provocative clothing. You are producing more idiots compared to producing more nation builders. So how do we now advise, initiate policy implementation, and let these guys know that the root problem is educational reform, and how can we address this educational reform?
Okay. Now, first of all, it starts with us. How do we look at ourselves before we even meet other people? Because it always gets to self-esteem, and then from self-esteem, we get to identity crisis. But how it gets there, sometimes it is beyond our control. Sometimes it has been dictated by the systems. But this is how it can be done to be corrected. First of all, as African communities, we have to carry out research on ourselves. So after carrying out research on ourselves and understanding ourselves, we shall learn to appreciate ourselves. So from that appreciation, now we shall go to connecting with other people when we already understand ourselves. And that will be easy for us to associate with them as partners, but not as inferiors. So what happens here is that we do not know ourselves. And what comes from the foreigners looks very beautiful because they know themselves. Trust me, one time I traveled with a Nigerian here in Uganda. We traveled in a bus, and this Ugandan fella here, I mean this Nigerian fella here, kept talking about the beautiful things about his country. And imagine for us, the Ugandans who are just right next to him, we are concentrating on what was wrong with our country. As he was talking about what is right in his country, and yet we are all Africans. We know also what happens in Nigeria. So that is one step of understanding ourselves. And when we understand ourselves and we'll move from low self-esteem to higher self-esteem, we are going to get rid of, we want to get rid of identity crisis. And when we get rid of identity crisis, we shall join conversations of people, for example, from Asia, from America and Europe, when we are confident of ourselves, it will not look like we have much to adopt to be good people. And
Okay,
so it starts from our
Ken-
governments coming up with a budget to
Kenneth,
run research in our various cultures.
Kenneth, I will say this. I don't know if you understand. There's a global stereotype on every African. And let me tell you that global
Mm.
stereotype. One of the global stereotype on every African is that you are expected to articulate yourself in certain ways, to behave in certain ways, as a matter of fact, in some crude manners and or rustic manners, as the case may be, and you are expected not to actually go beyond some certain cognitive level. Now, these people have aggressive media, negative portrayal against us. I mean the global game going on. But our government as well, right now, um, uh, as the case may be, as I was telling you, let us study about the miracle of the story of Ben Carson. Like I'm going to make use of gifted hands. So because many Christians just come out and say Ben Carson, God healed him. God, I do not like when people think God is just a God, is an abracadabra kind of God. How did God cure Ben Carson or heal him or change him from a dunce mentality to a very brilliant doctor that we have, neurosurgeon? Yes, Ben Carson had an enabling environment, access to community life, access to resources, access to certain changes, access to things that can enable him to actually change intellectually. Then we have diverse kids here, gifted kids. And these kids are very brilliant. But what does the environment have? What does the government have in place in order to enable these kids? Secondary school, you talk about library. How much of this library do we make use of? And how what kind of resources do we have now? Now we're going to move away from there because we're now we're now in the age of global library, which is the internet. But can you see where I'm coming from? Can you see where Africa has been lagging behind? Because people talk about Ben Cassie and say, "Oh, the guy was a dunce," but how did his miracle move? He had access to community libraries. Let us say
Mm.
the mighty hands of God directed him. He started making use of the community library from time to time, right? How does an African child like Ben Carson during his age, how can an African child also, have access to? There's no enabling environment in such manner, and our government does not care. And rather than we to have community libraries, we have motels and brotels. We have communities that are not well planned. That is just like everybody just settle. Let me even call it settlement. But that aside, let us move to the embracing of technology and digital platform. Now we came to this era where embracing technology and digital platform is now the era of the day. But boom, guess what? Are we also making use of this in the positive light? And that's the question I'm going to ask you. Are we making use of this global library in our hand, our phone, in the positive light? Are we?
No, uh, surely I will not even pretend about that. We are not making progress in that. First of all, when you get to all these other socials, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, or X, and Instagram, you realize that the best we can do as Africans is to make fun of ourselves. We really make fun of ourselves. It is only when you bump into a video of Chinese that you'll see someone teaching you how to make a candle. Imagine a candle. Yeah, you scroll. When you next find an African, of course, he's struggling to show you how gifted he is below his belt. He has, of course, worn that tight pair of trousers, and the front part of him is bulging. And when you go to the comment section, people are happy, people are laughing. Yeah, and then someone here has made a point, by the way, I don't know if you have seen it, that that is the problem Nigerian names are hard, or pay made the buy or
Yes.
something. Eh?
No,
He
yeah,
has
yeah.
made a point that yes, that our libraries are full of foreign books, and
Um,
that was going to
look,
be my next point.
look,
And I will
look,
not
look.
say much
I
about that. Let me
understand.
first.
look, Kenneth, we moved from the mechanical era, right?
Mm.
When our government has failed us, right? We didn't have access to community libraries, whatnot, and whatever community library you think we have in Nigeria, it is not the kind of community library that we are experiencing in this European terrain. Community library in the essence that every street, every area has their own, they have each library to themselves. Now, when we look at this perspective, then we say, okay, we moved from that. All the global resources, intellectual resources have been collated to the use of technology and digital platform. So we see now that what is going on is economical warfare, intellectual warfare that is going on. Are we actually playing this game well? Because it seems to me like we love anything that entertains us than anything that challenges us intellectually, that actually want us to innovate or invent. It's like we feel that the world revolves around vibes and whatever we call it. And you know the danger about all this thing that is going on.
Okay, look
I,
here, my
I
brother.
fear, I fear for a time where I don't know if it is. I don't want to say some derogatory words right now, but I fear for a time where African people, it will not be too late for them to realize that there is actually the possibility for them to actually be forced to play second fiddle to the world all over again. Just let me use that word diplomatically like that. So my
Yeah.
question to you right now, again, which I'm pushing forward now, in the in this embracing of technology and digital platform, how has school, the government's role, we know government is a big lash behind whatever loose end we're experiencing in the technology platform or digital platform as the case may be. But what has been the role, the engagement of our schools in this engagement?
Okay.
Active engagement.
Now, my brother, when you look at the young people we have, apparently, they are very anxious. They are filled with anxiety. But of course, technology will go with computer, it will go with internet. But look here in Uganda, even internet itself is taxed by the government. Social media is taxed by the government. And then the government goes to design its curriculum and makes ICT compulsory because, of course, perhaps the person who has sponsored the curriculum has dictated. They make it compulsory. But when you go to the field, how many schools have these computers? Of course, you'll find that the schools with a few computers are actually in urban centers, schools in places where there's electricity, schools that can afford internet, and there are very few. So, in the open, the government will talk as if it is promoting ICT, as if it is pushing the children to the internet, to the modern technology. But in actions or policy-wise, you realize that little is being done. You realize that schools are not exempted from social media tax. Schools still have to buy the same data, just like the business people out there. And in the end, most of the children end up not being exposed to what they should really know out there. So when we look at,
Should we blame?
I want to get you back. I want to get you back from
Okay,
where you started.
okay.
Uh, you talked about us having the ability and the energy, the enthusiasm to go to the libraries or to get away from the libraries, go to the computer. I've already addressed the computer side. Now, libraries, first of all, what's in these libraries was last revised perhaps during colonial times. Most of them, what do our children gain from the physics they study? If they can graduate as engineers at Makerere University, at
And
Chambogo University, and
there's
our
no
government
there's no
still give
research
the
institutes.
contract to the
There's no research
Indians and
institute that could
Chinese.
play, and there's no research institutes or investment towards the physics they studied. I'm just completing your thoughts. Yeah, continue.
Yeah, true, true, true.
Continue. I'm just completing your thoughts.
So now I have talked about engineers. Our governments have organized the curriculum for universities. Students are graduating as engineers, but when there is a contract for constructing a road, even a feeder road, they will still give it to the Chinese when our engineers are here unemployed. And these engineers are actually products of our education system. But you realize that the same government
Does
that
not trust their
is
expertise.
charging with that,
Does not trust their
yes,
expertise. I mean, the same
true.
government does not trust their expertise.
Sorry.
I mean, the same government does not trust their expertise.
Exactly. Their products are not trusted. You go to the hospitals. The other time, I'm told the president of the Republic of Uganda sent his daughter to Germany to deliver a baby, just delivering a baby. You get, so they train doctors they don't trust, meaning that the government itself has no faith in our education system. And yet, ironically, it is the same government that is supposed to organize the same education system we are talking about here.
You have a
So
valid,
sometimes
uh,
the youth you look at in Africa have their hands tied. What they consume in school is not what they will need in field when it comes to
you
survival
have a
mechanism.
valid point. You have a valid point. I'm sorry to interject. I'm just trying to manage time. So now let us now marry these two together. How can we employ strategies of nurturing reading culture with the use of technology and digital platform? I'll give an example. I understand that there's no way we're going to use digital platform without trying to entertain ourselves, maybe watch movie or trying to engage social media with the
Mm.
leisure activities. But when that is the only thing we use it for, there is a problem. When that is the only thing we think the social media is for, there is a problem. I'm yet to even see. Jesus, I don't want to go deep. So, how do you think? What are the strategies we can employ in Africa to nurture reading culture with the use of technology and digital platform?
Okay. One, our children can be made to read the books without being forced. First of all, we need to first look at our examination bodies as people. We need to call upon our government and the people around us to advocate for reforms in the examination bodies. Because if the examination is set in a way that students should remember what the teacher said, then the children will not read. But if the examinations are based on research, of course, I know what I'm talking about might be beyond us, but I'll get to the other side. If there is the studies are based on research, children will visit these books and they will go to the examination rooms to do those exams based on what they have researched. Now, us as people, first of all, it gets back to parenting. You know, it is very hard. It's very hard to train someone of my age to start loving books with the distractions around, just as you have mentioned. Some people, what they do is that they give gifts to people who read, but to that is not sustainable. You cannot surely sit in a library to give a book. A gift, let's say, a piece of chocolate to whoever has opened the book. We must make it very hard for people to get the information they desire in their everyday life without reading. So that they get the books and read. This is what is happening apparently. Someone wants to know about poultry farming, goes to TikTok, uh, uh, types in the search bar poultry farming, and boom, someone is giving him how they feed birds. Boom, someone is giving him how they warm birds. Boom, and things become very tricky. And what is given here, the problem with what is given here is that it is not approved by anyone. I can also wake up just from my bed. I just put how to cure HIV/AIDS. I record my video, and so many youth, so many lazy youth will be watching that and they will try what I will have suggested. And yet the books go through a process. The publication of a book goes through a process. The book would have been better, but how do we save? Of course, the media platforms, like the apps we have a way of deleting what has been complained about. We must first have this positive attitude towards ourselves, towards our communities, that whenever we see, or when we see something of this nature, something that is distracting, we report it. For me, this is very simple. This is now street knowledge. We report it, they block it, so that whoever wants to know something, they go to the books that have gone through a full process. Though I know that is, of course, not going to be possible with so many people. People have become lazy with social media. That's why someone will actually find it tiresome to type 3 letters.
Do you not see?
You.
Wait. I'm sorry. You said many things that are very sensitive. I just want to make it pronounced. So many people have become lazy with the use of social media. Do you not see that as serving agenda to some certain people? Because I realize that this same social media has an allowed content,
True.
allows specific content that they make use of in certain areas.
Mm,
Whereas in another part of the world, what they what they what they allow to filter the environment is something that does not even relate to development. Whereas there's a country that is so conscious that what they allow on the same TikTok you are talking about is developmental content. So are you not seeing the trick here? Are Africans not playing right into the hands of the agenda of people who have a long-term game of winning?
okay. Now, of course, that is a very big challenge, which I also see. I'm told in Africa, I've never been to places like UK. I know you're in UK. I'm told what we view here is just to keep us occupied, laughing until we are
Redundant
tired
and
and
stupid.
sleep.
Don't say occupied. What filters African TikTok is more of redundancy and stupidity. Because
Ex-
when just let me pause at that, because I know I'm making some controversial statement and I don't care. I'm saying the truth. But in China, in the Asian part of the world, you see kids, they will tell you how to make this, how to make that, how to fix this, how to change this. You
Yeah.
see kids. So you want to compare and contrast who is planning to win the long-term game of domination of the world game compared to those
Mm,
people that are put into permanent sleep. So how do we play this card?
of
Do you
course,
really think?
my brother Sodeke, it gets back to the education system. Our children need to be exposed to ICT. They need to have computer knowledge, because it is based on the computer knowledge that they are going to come up with apps that can challenge TikTok, apps that can challenge Instagram and the rest.
But
Because
it's so
just as
sad.
you have said,
It's so sad.
uh,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to cut you short. It's so sad that in was it in 2021?
mm,
No, I think it was 2019. I'm not so sure. 2019 precisely, when I was in Ghana. Then I had a program I just completed. I was in the village, that's western region of Ghana, yeah, precisely. Then
mm,
these kids used to follow their granny or maybe their dad to the farm. They will come. So there's a community school there. You know how community school looks like in rural school. Rural community school looks like in Africa. So this kid came to me at night and told me, Master, please, that what he was trying to tell me is that he and his friends were arguing that there's a type of computer that works without being
mm,
without being plugged to the socket, that it can work on its own. Do you know what this guy was asking me? That
Robert,
does laptop
we're not talking about the robotics or
that does lap no, I'm trying to see, I'm trying to reveal to you how Africa is lagging behind in cohesion, because the ratio of people who are in the rural settings, see, African elite are blinded with whatever lies they've blinded themselves with. They are not the majority, fam. The majority of the
mm.
African people are not the elite, fam.
But you see, my brother, let me tell you, what the greatest challenge we have is the packaging of what is taught. People have gone to school to get educated, and in the end, they have got disoriented. What we are taught is poorly packaged, because Imagine, one time I went to a computer lesson, or ICT as we like calling it in Uganda. Do you know where we are starting from? Theories. We're talking about generations of computers, the origin of computers. First generation, that is first generation, the computer was very big. Second generation, it was slightly small. Third generation, to grew smaller. Fourth
And they
generation,
tell you as
imagine.
garbage. They tell you as garbage is the father of computer. I don't know how that correlates with at the point we've gotten to and what I need to know about the use of computer. What's my business with Charles Garbage? You can give me that as a residual knowledge or whatever you can call it, but that shouldn't be the main thing. Give me the motherboard, how to fix, how to change battery, how to identify, how to the mother panel, all these kind of things. These are the things we need to know about computer. Let these kids know how to do this soldering iron and all. Let them get and let them understand. Now, you see, many people are tilting towards because now they said that the new wave of making money now is ICT. So for some reason, people have started to go learn about JavaScript, about building this, building that. But the the real question is this: nation building and the entirety of the African people. The elite actually always see themselves as fortunate, more fortunate than their people, thinking that the war is against who gets out of the shade of the dark part of Africa, or who gets part of the out of the. That is a sick mentality. Whereas you are supposed to understand the fact that it is until the entire African people can stand on their feet. That is when we started equating. You know, it's a different thought process. You know what I'm talking about. So these are people who find themselves fortunate to be so close out to the oppressors and think, oh, I'm an elite. I'm an educated person because I've gotten my certificate from Chicago University. I've gotten it from this. I've gotten it from so I'm certified. But these people here don't even pride themselves as that. It is what I can actually do, not the certification.
Okay. So, Dick, let's get that. You see, with the packaging of our content, the content taught in school, the elites are those who think, or maybe who have consumed much of our curriculum. And since our curriculum is designed in a way that we must appreciate one culture against the other, they think that associating closely with the colonialists or the designers of our initial or the original curriculum makes them elite. And so it gets to a point where the so-called elite are actually the brainwashed. Most of our elite are the brainwashed. And the problem is that we have got a point where we associate civilization with the kind of education that we consume. And so it becomes very complicated for an African child, for an African girl or boy who is trying to make sense of his own surrounding and is being reminded by the teacher, of course, the teacher who is also directed by what is written in the curriculum. You say, okay, who found, like here in Uganda, they ask you, who discovered River Nile? If you do not mention a certain white man, you will actually be marked wrong. And yet, even on the banks of River Nile, there are people who have stayed there since time immemorial. And they will even tell you that the people, the people who are staying there are primitive natives. They will even tell you somewhere in their books that the person who came to discover the river was welcomed by the natives. And so in the books, the children will be told that the white man who was actually welcomed by the natives living by the river bank of a certain river actually came to discover that river. And of course, what do you expect? That child will know that, of course, we are inferior, and the other side, or the side of the people who came to discover, they are superior. It starts from that
Mm.
stage. It's brainwashing. It starts from what we are taught in school.
I think you are absolutely 100% right. And when you said the elites are brainwashed, actually, was it Franz Manon who said that he said white man black skin. It is not everybody that is black skin that is actually African, and that is the mistake
True.
we all make. But now let's moving ahead. Let us, because time is fast spent. So we've talked about incorporating indigenous language and culture. I'm looking forward to a day when the so-called elite will champion the translation of all these physics textbook, chemistry textbook to our indigenous languages. Would start to understand that your ability to articulate yourself in English does not make you superior to your African brother. But you, the onus rests on you in order to simplify knowledge, because community building is a collective effort. But these people are so focused on the fact that they are different from their own kind. It's like looking at your reflection in the mirror and you are disgusted. You are saying, I don't like my reflection, but I like myself out of the mirror. That is you being crazy, fam. That is you being mad, fam. But that's a talk for another day. But I'm looking forward to when we intellectuals will actually, I think we should push that towards the African Union, where we could actually interpret all this esoteric language, not for our own sake, esoteric language found in chemistry, these core subjects that are so essential to manufacturing, to invention, to development, translate it to African languages and let us absorb it in our educational system. And that will actually change our educational reforms. That will initiate educational reforms and policy implementation. The problem is nobody wants to actually distort this system for adequate change. They just want to maintain it. They want to manage it.
Now,
And the system is
look here, my
broken. It
brother.
can't be managed anymore, fam.
Look here. I'm sorry to cut you short. Look here. Our intellectuals are suffering from intellectual snobbery and sometimes megalomania. When you look at the medical books, the language used there is very complicated, and yet to have medical doctors with PhDs in Africa, they have not labored to translate or simplify the content of these books. You go to the field of law, most of the books are very complicated. Even some have Latin, Greek in it. We have professors of law in Africa. They have not labored to translate these things here. Do you know why? Why they're not translating them?
Why?
Because we are suffering from a certain condition I've failed to name. We want to be seen as people who know much. We want to be feared by the communities we come from. That are when you get home or when you get the community and say, okay, you have they organized you with this and this, people should fear you and say, truly, this boy studied. The Africans have really betrayed Africa, especially the elite. The elite have betrayed Africa 100%, simply because they have not bothered to simplify what they know to the common or to the benefit or the consumption of the common African down in the field. You are talking about painkillers, you're talking about this, but you're using very difficult language, and you're not bothered even to sit down and write a book to interpret that. So Africa's greatest problem apparently is its so-called elites. They are our biggest problems.
I know if we continue on these, we are not going to stop, but quite unfortunate, we have to round up. So I have this last question for you. Before this last
Mm,
question, we've talked about community engagement and parents' involvement. I really think people want to be careful enough when we bring development to their doorstep. When people see community library in their community, their children walking into that library to study for real, I don't think they would be so eager to vandalize such property. I don't
mm, 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 mm.
compare to when you build hotels and you are making our daughters prostitute, you filling the streets with drugs, making young able men that have bright potentials to be redundant of themselves, useless on this. There's no job even to sustain themselves, and these people are incapacitated. You've broken the backbone of humanity away from them. You've subjected them to subhumans, all in the name of the fact that, oh, these people. And there's a saying, there was a saying that I don't believe though. It said, if you want to hide anything from a black man, put it in a book. That statement was supposed to be offensive, but you see some black people defending it. That, yeah, it's true. And the only thing a black man has read the opposite time back to back without no dispute is the Bible and the Holy Quran. Anything aside from that, I do not see them trying it out. It's more of, oh, this. And is that not the reason why you listen to people who have read some stupid books that you could read on your own and trying to tell you there was a man in Japan, his name is Chon Chon Chon, and his shop burned down and he was laughing at his some kind of, what is my business with what is going on in Japan? But you're sounding so intellectual. You could bring an incident from New Zealand, bring an incident from Japan, and you just gave him all the platform of, oh, this guy is the new Socrates. That needs to stop.
Now, you see,
That
my
needs to
brother,
stop.
much of what we have in our books is related to something beautiful that those people study. As they study exploration, the other side, how to cut out expeditions, our children here are reading that Vasco da Gama was the first white man to arrive in East Africa. For them, they are studying how to cut out expeditions. As we are studying discoveries, they are studying how to actually discover or how to conquer places. We are looking at discoveries, they are looking at how to conquer places. And our
How,
children are
how to
examined in a way
break,
that who
how
discovered
to
Mount
break the.
Everest?
Well, well, well. My last question, like I said, is going to be this. What is your projection? This question I always straight open to all my guests is always the last question. What is your projection of Africa about the reading culture? And is it an emergency? Is it a state of emergency right now? Or it's an advice that we should move in that direction? What's your projection in the next 10 years that you feel like, oh, if we move in this direction, it is going to be okay. But if we don't move in this direction, things are going to
Okay.
be, I don't know, in Kenneth's word, I don't want to speak for.
Well, it is not a state of emergency because when it comes to reading, the ones in schools are reading. The ones not in schools are not reading. But meanwhile, the ones in schools are reading for exams. So it is not a state of emergency. It is about us revising, especially the teachers, revising the ways we use to send the young people to the books. Because if you are saying, go and find out the page on which the name Sodek appears in this book, the child will find that, okay? And that's the kind of reading we have apparently. But if you ask that, go and find out what Sodeke says in this book, that child will read. The other one is just perusing through. So my projection of the reading culture is that it is not in a state of emergency, and it can always get better. First of all, Africans are filled with anxiety. They're very anxious people. And if we refer them or send them to the books, or if we find a mechanism as teachers to send them to these books in a way that is going to force them to read, they will surely read. I have not lost hope. That's why I still write, because if I lost hope about the reading culture of
That,
Africa,
that's
I
true.
would have stopped writing.
Even me,
Thank you, bro.
I'm pushing my new book right now. I've not lost hope. I'm still representing. And my new book is coming out this year. It's titled The Heavens of Immortals. It's,
Mm,
it's, it's actually
mm.
big bang, Yeah, you're very right on that. And we've not lost hope. We still have people who read. It's just that we are not impressed by the number, by the margin. And we know that this venture that we are into, it's essential, it's a necessity, it's not an option. You can choose whether to like a certain kind of music, or not. You can choose whether to like a certain kind of brand clothing or not, or but you cannot choose not to be an important or not to be aware. You cannot choose to be a human being that you've subjected yourself to be subhuman compared to your contemporaries in other part of the world. And like Al Maktoum bin Rashid said, the one who revolutionized and changed Dubai to what it is right now, he said, the new war is economical war, intellectual wars. It is not a war that we are fighting with ballistic missiles. So when you want to fight an intellectual war, like in my book, my first novel, I said, when you have an intelligent enemy, you do not choose to be stupid. So one of the act of stupidity is for you to be deliberately ignorant about what is going on in your environment, in your culture, part of your history, to be aware about what is going on in the world, and to sentence yourself to self-darkness, self-ignorance, and say, I don't want to be part of this. I just want vibes. Like vibes. They kill vibes, no? They bomb vibes, no? Vibes go to prison, no? Vibes died like common people, no?
True.
Vibes don't build a nation. Conscious people
That
do,
is true.
intelligent people do, you know? So,
That is actually very true. Talking about the projects, of course, we just have to continue writing. I know the young people. Remember I said African children are very anxious. We need to get back to the style of writing. You have this book, The Gods of My
my parents,
Parents.
yeah,
The,
that's my
ti-
first.
the, ti- the title alone will pull you to the book. There is a brother of mine here, Kakwenza Rukirabasaija, who was in trouble with the president. He wrote a book, The Greedy Barbarian. Right now he's abroad. He's, I think, in Germany. He's in exile. But I trust me, we all ran to all libraries to look for the greedy barbarian. Because like you want to see how greedy is the barbarian mentioned in this. It gets back to us the creative writers. Somehow we need to change the style. There's the creativity, especially we need to be captivating. We are dealing with a society that easily loses interest. So the very first thing should surely be the title and perhaps the cover, because you are dealing with a society that has no time. A generation that easily loses
Five
interest.
minutes of
It doesn't care
conversation and
about
they've
the
lost
depth
it.
of
Even on
whatever
internet,
you write.
on internet scrolling, they are impatient. Once your content is not attracting from the beginning, phew, swipe. So
Exactly.
I I, I understand you. Honestly, I just feel that we have a lot to say in this topic, and this 1 hour cannot do justice to it. We will just try as much as possible to have covered the core, essential, themes that we feel that we should talk about. But truthfully, Kenneth and I, what we've been saying since is the fact that this reading culture is not the type of reading culture that we are used to in school that discourages you because you're reading to pass. He said it. We need to have this reading culture because we want to be aware, we want to be informed. We don't want to be, we just have to be, we have to adopt that reading culture, and that is what makes us, curious. That is what brings, the humanity side of us, and that is what makes us intellectuals. That is what even pushes us to our purpose. It is not true reading that you read about. It was when I read about Malcolm X. I think I was in secondary school. I read about Malcolm X. I started reading about Martin Luther King. Then I realized, wait, so some people are really suffering in America, and we are chilling in Africa. And also, reading makes you to be aware. And I read about Malcolm X. I remember back then I started asking questions. And when they told me about Malcolm X, I felt like, wow. So this freedom that we are enjoying right here, some people are actually, so we need to understand the fact that that also needs to be imbibed to every parent right now, to every parent listening right now that you're going to watch this. You need to imbibe that culture in your child. Yeah, enough of this baby shark, do whatever you give them tablets. That is not. That is actually fulfilling your own ego. It is not helping that child in any way. You need to instill reading culture into that child, that your daughter, that your lovely son. If you love them, instill reading makes them disciplined. Reading makes them intellectuals. Reading makes them vibrant. Reading makes them aware. And
Now,
it is not
my
too young
brother,
to start. Not too young. I remember when I started reading, it started, I think, primary school. My mom would buy this Ladybird book for me. You know, this Chicken Little, those hardcover Chicken Little, the Three Pigs, the whatever wolves and what. So I would read. I would exchange with my friend in class. He would borrow me his. So that is how I started. And he's going to tell me when he wants to collect it back. So I knew because of the deadline, I would have to go home and read it, complete it, return his book, take another one, and bring another one. So we're just exchanging books like that till I read the whole Ladybird books. You know,
now, my brother, let me tell you one thing. I'm sorry to cut you short. In most of the modern homes I've visited, the books or the bookshelves are in the bedroom or the master room or the bedroom of the head of the family. But the TV is in the sitting room and the remote is on the coffee table, meaning that it is easy to access the remote. And yet, to access the books in the shelves in the bedroom,
the
you
father is
need the key.
talking.
So it is us. It is actually us who are sometimes, making it hard for the children to read.
Mm.
Imagine a situation where the TV is in my bedroom and I'm the one with the key, and the books are in the sitting room, to a level or a height a child can easily reach. Certainly something will develop in that child's head. You know, the child will pick the book. At least the first time, the child will be flipping through the pages. The second time, the child will try to pay attention to what is in the books. So it gets back to us. We can do something, even without looking at the government, without looking at the contents in the book, because we are living in a generation where we can access any book of our choice, though some will be hidden, but at least we can get the most basic. And then let's provide books for entertainment. Let's let the children read for fun instead of them reading out of tension or reading while in tension for fear of exams. Let us keep the TV or even make a timetable for the TV and make the books accessible. And then we ask them questions that challenge them, questions that send them to the books without necessarily forcing them, because what happens usually is that reading is repressive. Someone older has to force you to go there, and yet watching TV is easier. It gets to how we address these two things. Can we make reading books very funny? We sit with our families. My wife holds a book, I hold a book. Certainly my child will be forced to read one. But look at a situation where my wife is on TV, the eyes are glued on TV. She's watching Indian opera, and she cannot even cook the food. The food burns on the pan. The child is looking at her. The next day, the child will also be wanting to see exactly what mom was saying. And that child, trust me, will not love the books. The child will love the screen. So let's get to us. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. This is for the jokes, though. We've ended this live. I want to appreciate you, Kenneth, Ngise. I'm looking forward to those time when I think I'm going to win Nobel laureate before you. By the ways, I'm looking forward to
That
that
is
time.
true. That is true.
I want to win. I want to win Bobby Wine Award, and you're going to make that happen. Maybe Bobby Wine Pan Africanist Writer Award or West African Award. I want to win it
No.
because Bobby Wine. I've been following Bobby Wine over some time. I like.
Oh,
He's
and trust me, tomorrow Bobby Wine will be going to my region. I think I will be the first to win the Bobby Wine Award. The gentleman has inspired us from humble background, us from families that had no hope and purpose. He's really a great
I
inspiration, all
love.
sorts of inspiration,
I love him.
and somehow I think we are still gripping to what we think is ours because he's there.
I love him. I love him. He's been an inspiration too, and it's okay to see people like that: Bobby Wine, Julius Malema, Seun, Anikulapo Kuti,
Mm,
yourself. We're still pushing the narrative, Pan Africanism, and
true.
we are here. doing it in our own way. Yeah. I big shout out to him. So either ways, this is where we call it a quit. Thank you very much. I know you're a very busy type, and thank you for your time, sparing your time. I appreciate. Anytime also you call me, I'm always game. I'm Uganda, half Uganda, half Nigerian, so don't fear. So thank you very much. Till we see you next time, okay? Cheers, man.
True, bro.
Cheers, man. Cheers. Bye.
Well, thank you for hosting me. I've loved everything, our conversation, and to my brother, is it
Well,
Adibayo? Yes, Opeyemi Adibayo. Greetings, I love you, bro.
cheers, man. Cheers, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Yeah.